a statement having to do with families. That doesn't mean that people that aren't a member of a big and beautiful family with 400 children around and everything else, it doesn't mean that a person doesn't have, he's not against anything, but he loves family. It's very important to him. All he said is he does like, I mean, for him, he likes family.
He likes family. Donald Trump defending his running mate, J.D. Vance, as he continues to face backlash over his now viral remarks aimed at Kamala Harris and supporters of her.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
New reporting this morning by CNN's K-File indicates that Vance has a history of making disparaging remarks about people who happen not to have children, including this comment he made in an interview in 2020.
There's just these basic cadences of life that I think are really powerful and really valuable when you have kids in your life. And the fact that so many people, especially in America's leadership class, just don't have that in their lives, you know, I worry that it makes people more sociopathic and ultimately our whole country a little bit less less mentally stable. And of course, you talk about going on Twitter. Final point I'll make is you go on Twitter, and almost always the people who are most deranged and most psychotic are people who don't have kids at home.
I mean, all right, my panel is back. David, sociopathic if you choose not to have kids or can't have kids or happen not to have kids? Explain.
Well, I can't. Look, I want to go to the politics of it is easy. I don't think people are going to vote on either of the vice presidential picks. I think this is going to be a race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That being said, I think as a party, we need to reassess how we talk about issues. And look, that's out of line. It's not how we should approach these issues. It's not, by the way, not just from a voting standpoint, an electoral standpoint, from a common sense standpoint. And I think, hopefully, as a party, we learn lessons from watching, these types of hits, especially in conservative media, where we tend to get loose and relaxed, to take a more nuanced approach and, frankly, focus on the issues that matter. And right now, the issues that matter in this country are immigration. It's the economy. And it doesn't matter whether you have kids or you don't, whether you're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican. We should talk about those issues in the way that we view them from a philosophical standpoint, not from a more radicalized language standpoint.
Okay, is it loose and relaxed and honest?
Oh, it's just honest, right? I mean, that's when you're loose and relaxed. You're like conveying what you really think. And I mean, and also, I mean, this is not like a one-off. He made a sarcastic comment and then he was like, that's not really what I meant. I mean, we've seen this repeatedly. He has continued to make these comments. He also, in his first attempt to sort of clean this up after he became the vice presidential nominee, he apologized to the cats that he offended, but not the women. So I think that was pretty telling. So, it is incredibly divisive. It is, as I was saying earlier, I mean, I think it is part of a larger problem that this ticket has with women, as they should, in my opinion. But it's also going to continue to drive the conversation, and to David's point, is going to prevent the Republicans from being able to get to the issues they want to get to, which I have to imagine is driving Donald Trump crazy.
So, I mean, the other point is, I mean, he's even made the case, right, that people with kids should have more votes and be able to vote for the kids. So there's a policy element to that as well. I mean, Saleha, the other issue for Vance is his past very, very strong criticism of the former president and current candidate for president. I'll give you a couple. These come from the New York Times, excerpts from J.D. Vance's emails to a classmate of his from Yale's Law School. October 23rd, 2014, I hate the police. Given the number of negative experience I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through. October 4th, 2016, speaking of Trump here, he's a bad man, a morally reprehensible human being. That, by the way, not a singular comment. I mean, he referred to Trump as America's Hitler here. How does this play for him among Republican voters here, right? Because, I mean, to the extent that Fox News is playing this kind of stuff, I mean, some of them are going to see this.
I think what we're seeing here, the fact that Trump came out and cleaned that up shows how uncomfortable members of the party are. But I also think that we don't know this party very well as it is now. In 2016, the party that Trump took was one that was against him, and he was constantly fighting the forces of the establishment and traditional side of the party. And now he kind of owns it. But even he does not know exactly what does that mean and how far can I and my men go in making these kinds of attacks. And they're finding that those lines are interesting, but also we have no polling right now of how he will do against Kamala and how these kinds of comments, when you have a woman running for president, how those resonate. I think it's really interesting. It's 98 days out. We don't actually know from just data how this is playing out.
Yeah, and I mean, as you see Trump struggle there to explain some of these comments, you get a sense that even he sees the political sensitivity, potential damage from this.
Some newly resurfaced emails tonight between J.D. Vance and one of his law school friends. Sophia Nelson says Vance called Trump a bad man, morally reprehensible as well, and he worried about Trump's rhetoric and that it could endanger Muslims. He said that the more white people vote for Trump, the more blacks will suffer. CNN's Aaron Burnett spoke with Nelson tonight in an exclusive interview.
What I've seen is a chameleon, someone who is able to change their positions and their values depending on what will amass them political power and wealth. This isn't someone who evolved on one or two issues and with new information. This is someone who has changed their opinion on literally every imaginable issue that affects everyday Americans in this country and change the way they speak about people.
Back with my panel here, I think one of the most problematic of these messages is this one from 2014, where Vance says, "I hate the police. Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the last few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through." If Kamala Harris had said that, it would be a whole other conversation, I think.
Yeah, I think that J.D. Vance certainly has the right to change his opinion. I think that that's what happens in politics all the time. Donald Trump certainly has changed his opinion as well. But I find it interesting that he talks about he can't imagine what a black guy would go through. No, you can't imagine what a black guy would go through. No, you cannot imagine that at all. And so I think that, you know, from the standpoint of somebody who's changing their opinion and changing what they really think, I think that J.D. Vance is going right along with Donald Trump and what he's done on abortion and a bunch of other issues as well.
Look, this was a private correspondence between him and someone who was at the time a very close friend of his. They used to text and email about, you know, everything going on in the news, and they would disagree because Sophia was more liberal and Vance was more conservative, and they had really thoughtful, intimate conversations about all these topics. I think this is why you have to understand the way he speaks to a private friend, really talking heart to heart, is a lot more unguarded than something I think any one of us would say if we were suddenly now public figures, right? Sure. So I don't think you can necessarily say that because that rhetoric is so pointed, I hate the police, and make that one-to-one with like if Kamala had said the same thing publicly.
I mean, the reason I say that is because I think you know as well as I do, if there were any private, public, it doesn't matter where the messages were, if any Democrat were caught saying, I hate the police, that would instantly be attached to them as a political attack.
And your point,
whether or not they
the
change
point
their
that you
view
just
or not.
made is that in those intimate emails, those private emails with his friend is when he was actually being truthful. So I'm kind of marveling at the lack of vetting that seems to have gone on in the Trump campaign that had a lot of time to pick their vice president. They had a ton of time. And I've been, amazed at just all of the things that came out. Look, and I think, to me, it's very funny when I hear J.D. Vance talk about Kamala Harris as a DEI hire, because I think he got a book deal, and I think he got a TV contract, and I think he got a movie deal, because he's a DEI hire. You want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion? He came on, and he was supposed to be the hillbilly translator, which was something that was sorely lacking on national TV and in the movies. And so if we're going to talk about hiring somebody because of what they represent and the color of their skin and where they come from, let's start with J.D. Vance.